Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, if you live in a part of the country that has a long growing season like we do, this is the perfect time of year to get seeds started for a fall and maybe even early winter harvest of some of the frost hardy plants. Today I'm going to be starting broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage that will go in some containers behind our greenhouse, and also some of the beds here in the garden once some of the summer plants are done. Very soon we are going to be harvesting all of our onions out of the garden because they are getting big and they are ready to harvest. Once those beds are empty, we'll be able to put some of these cool weather plants in there. These will actually do really well in the warm weather while they're small, and then because it's going to start gradually getting cooler and cooler, as these get bigger, that will actually be perfect timing for these. I'm going to be starting 2 trays of these today. Each tray holds about 32 plants, so we're starting about 64 plants. Now, if you've watched our seed starting videos in the springtime, we actually have a dedicated building that we start seeds in the actually still in the winter. Normally in January, February, and March is when we're starting seeds. It's way too cold to do that outside that time of year, but this time of year it's absolutely perfect. The other difference that you're probably going to notice is that in the springtime we almost always use a seed starting mix to start our seeds, but today I'm just going to be using some leftover potting mix. We still had about a half a bag left from when we did this project where we started Sarah's herb gardens out here in the garden area. The seed starting mix is kind of hard to find this time of year in the stores, and to be honest, we didn't have any left over, but we've started seeds in potting mix like this before and it works out just fine. So if this is all you can find and you can't find the seed starting mix, or you're not doing a whole lot like today, just some potting soil will be perfectly fine for starting seeds. So I'm going to get these trays filled up, all these little pots, and then we're going to head up to the front porch. I'll show you what varieties we're going to be planting today, and we'll get all of these seeds started. Now this potting soil's been outside, so it's pretty wet because we've had quite a bit of rain. So as I'm putting it in, I am breaking it up to make sure there's no big pieces, big clumps, especially right at the tops of the pots where we're going to be planting our seed. That's the only thing you want to make sure, so that especially brassicas seeds, they are very small, and so you want to make sure that you don't have any great big clumps that might, stop their roots from starting or stop them from popping up above the soil. But other than that, this potting soil will work just fine. All right, we're back up at the house. I've got my trays with the pots in here. It's time to get ready to start planting. Now we're going to be planting 20 cauliflower, 20 broccoli, and 24 of the cabbage. Partially because that's how many pots we have, and because I thought we normally eat more cabbage than we do the other things. We really enjoy cabbage, and so I think if we end up with more of that, that is going to be good. If this ends up being more plants than we need, we can share with people at church or something like that. But I think we'll probably find room to plant most of these. First thing we're going to do is we're going to label our trays. The way that we like to do this, instead of labeling each individual little pot, is just to put a piece of tape on the side of these flats. So I'll just put a piece of tape like this. And then I know I'm going to do 5 rows here of the cauliflower and 5 rows of broccoli, and then 6 rows of the cabbage. So I'm going to just draw a line here. And all right, cauliflower. And then here, cabbage. And then on this one, we'll just do the same thing, except this one will be broccoli and cabbage. Now here in our part of Missouri, our first frost date is usually right around the middle of October, and it's normally pretty accurate. It's about October 15th. But what happens here is a lot of times we will get a frost. It will kill off the real frost sensitive plants like tomatoes and peppers and things like that. But then a lot of times it'll warm back up. We may get days in the 60s and 70s again after that, which will be perfect for these plants. Once these are established, they can actually handle a couple frosts. It's not going to handle if it gets down to the 20s or teens, but if it dips down into the upper 20s or low 30s, these are going to be just fine once they're established. If they're little bitty seedlings, that then the frost could hurt them. But once they're more grown up, they're going to be just fine. All right, so let's mark this one broccoli and cabbage. All right, so I've got all of my seeds in little dishes like this. This is just how I like to sort my seeds when I don't know, it just makes it a little bit easier for me. I got a little bit bigger fingers, and these are tiny little seeds, so I'm going to show you a secret of how I like to plant these. The first thing I'm going to be planting is broccoli. The broccoli that we're going to be planting today is called Waltham 29. This is kind of a tried and true variety of broccoli. It does well here in our area, and I think it will do well pretty much anywhere as long as you can protect it. The one thing we need to protect all of these plants from here are cabbage moths and cabbage worms. Obviously, the cabbage are the most affected by these, but they will destroy even the cauliflower and broccoli as well. So we need to protect from that. The way that we do that is by putting nets over our plants. If you didn't see the video that we did early in the spring where we set up kind of a new garden behind the greenhouse, where we had a bunch of buckets and we planted a bunch of these same things in the spring, I showed you how we use what are called citrus tree or fruit tree bags to put over our pots. Those work out so well because they allow the rain and wind and sun and everything to get through, but they keep all of the bugs out. So that's what we're going to be doing again with these for the ones that we plant behind the greenhouse. We're coming up with a little different plan for the ones out in the garden, so stay tuned for that. All right, so what I like to do for these tiny little seeds that are hard to pick up, so again, these are the broccoli seeds. We're going to be planting these 5 rows here. What I like to do is I use a toothpick, and if you just get it a little bit wet, then you can just tap it onto a seed. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but the seed will stick to the toothpick. You can then just put it right into the soil, tap it down a little bit like that, and move on to the next one. So again, we're going to be doing 20 of the broccoli, and then we'll move on to cabbage next. All right, on to the cabbage. The cabbage that we're going to be planting is called Early Jersey Wakefield. It is another kind of tried and true variety of cabbage. These cabbages, instead of growing perfectly round though, they grow a little bit kind of pointy at the top. Not like a Napa cabbage, but just they're still a traditional cabbage. They just grow a little more oblong. But they are a really good variety, and they can withstand a little bit of frost, and that's why we like them. These are, I think, a 65 to 80 day variety. So we're going to be planting these exactly the same way. We're going to be putting them about a quarter to a half inch under the soil. And we're going to do 6 rows. So I'm going to do 3 rows in this tray over here and 3 rows in this tray over here. And then the rest of this one will be our cauliflower. So I'm going to go ahead and get these planted. I'm going to use the toothpick method again, just like I did before. And all of the seeds that I'm using today came from M.I. Gardner. I'll put a link to M.I. Gardner in the description. That's where we buy most of our seeds these days, unless they're out of something. But if we can get it from M.I. Gardner, that's where we get it. We really like the quality of their seeds. We've had really good germination with all of them, and we think you guys will enjoy ordering from them as well. All right, I'm going to get all of these cabbages planted, and then we'll move on to the cauliflower. The variety that we're going to be doing of the cauliflower is called self-blanching cauliflower, and that's all it's called. Again, it's from M.I. Gardner as well. What self-blanching cauliflower means is that the leaves of the cauliflower will actually grow up over the head and protect it from the light, so that the head of cauliflower inside stays nice and white. There are some varieties that are considered not self-blanching, which means that basically they grow with the leaves and the head kind of open to the sun. That can cause some problems. It makes them not look as nice. And most of the time with those varieties, you're supposed to go in and kind of tie those leaves over the top of the cauliflower. But these will grow with them already like that, so you don't have to worry about that. That's why we like self-blanching varieties. This is a variety that we've grown for quite a few years now. We really like it. It does well in our area. It is a 70 to 80 day variety. Now, we're going to be planting these the same way, about a quarter to a half inch under the soil. And I didn't say this earlier, but I'm actually planting 2 seeds in each pot. We can thin them out later on, but because I have extra seed and we have plenty to go around, I'm going to be planting 2 in each pot. That way we'll certainly get germination on all of these little pots. So I'm going to plant these again the same exact way. And then we'll be all finished with this project for today once I get these last seeds planted. Well, all of the seeds are in. I'm excited to get this going so that in probably about 4 weeks, 4 or 6 weeks, we'll be able to actually get these planted into our raised beds and into the containers. We love to grow brassicas like this in the fall because you're going from the hot to the cold, which kind of extends the season. One problem that we have here in the spring is that we go from kind of cool weather to really hot weather really fast, which actually makes the brassicas bolt a lot of times before we even get a decent harvest. By doing this in the fall, you're moving into the cold weather while these are a little bit bigger, and you actually end up with a better harvest in our opinion. So we've got everything set. I'm actually not going to water these today. Like I said, this soil or this potting mix was sitting outside, so it's really wet. I'm going to let these seeds in here overnight to kind of swell up a little bit. I'll check them tomorrow. I'll probably water them tomorrow, and then I'll make sure that I'm watering them every day. This time of year, our temperatures are in the 90s during the day, but I will keep these up here on the porch where they're in the shade. But as soon as they start to come up, I'm actually going to move them out onto the part of the porch that isn't covered so that they'll get used to the sun right away. That's one nice thing about starting seeds this time of year is we can do it right outside instead of like in a building. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need the grow lights and heat mats and all of that in this weather. Everything just kind of takes care of itself, which makes it really easy. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that if you live in an area where you have a long growing season that you'll be trying some fall and early winter things to grow as well. If you're not sure what you can grow in your area in the fall, almost every state extension office has a calendar that they will put out that will tell you what will grow in your area at certain times of year. I would check your state extension office or just go online and search for it, and you should be able to find a planting calendar like that. I know Missouri has a great one that they put out, and it's very, very useful. Make sure you leave in the comments what you're going to be growing this fall. I'm always interested in learning what everybody else is doing. And don't forget that if you enjoyed this video, to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share it with other people that may enjoy it as well. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care, and God bless.